Anne Frank died before she could resist. Had she lived just a little longer, but for a slightly longer life, she would have resisted. Alright, we need this open, because we're going to be using you to take the bulk of the notes. Alright. So I think we're starting with those questions Destiny has. I want to write those down for my whole... Oh my god, this guy posts a lot. Man, I swear, since it's denying like yesterday too. Okay, hang on, this ain't happening. Let me just check my old messages. I'll just open this. This.
What are the 5 questions you want a Palestinian supporter to answer? Who started the war in 47?
Okay, so first question. Who started the war in 47? Okay, question 2.
Who fired the first shots? It was Palestinians. They...
Oh, what the fuck are you asking the question for if you're already going to give us the answer? He's already given us the answer. What's up, Mr. Green? What's up, Broody? Guten Morgen. Who started the war in 47? It was the Palestinians. Who fired first? Why does he give us the answer if he's going to ask us these questions? Although, note, firing first does not necessarily mean starting the war. Follow-up question. What is the war? Referring to Civil War? I don't know why it's in caps. But the Civil War itself is preceded by its own litany of conflicts. So I'm going to need to do... The answers to these questions aren't necessarily black and white, but that's all right.
They would never admit that. The Nakba, what did that happen at the back of?
Okay, what did the Nakba happen at the back of? What did the Nakba happen in the back of?
It was a war between all the Arab states and Israel.
Why does he ask the question and then just give us the answer? Okay, it was a war between the Arab states and Israel. Thanks. It was a war between the Arab states and Israel. Why? Why was there a war between these states? Is this war related to the 47 Civil War? Oh, how do I do this shit? There we go. Third question.
Won't answer that. When you say you want a one-state solution, does that mean a one-state solution with an unlimited right of return for Palestinians? They will say yes. Does that...
When you say, okay, one-state solution means unlimited right of return. I mean, yes, but I don't advocate for a one-state solution, so this isn't too material to me anyway.
I mean, the Jews are going to live there as a minority?
Yeah.
They have to say yes.
Yep, that's exactly what it means.
Arabs to live there as a minority.
No,
and not be
they would not.
Or evicted.
Is that the same question? Would Jews trust Arabs? I mean, the answer is no, right? It seems obvious the answer is no. I don't know why I have to answer that one.
When they were evicted and kicked out of every other surrounding state. They might say something like, well, in that case, the Jews should go back.
When Jews were evicted out of every other surrounding state. We're going to do some fancy schmancy ChatGPT research on top of this.
to Europe or to Brooklyn, you could fight there on the historical grounds of, well, most Jews in Israel now are from other countries in the Middle East, so that doesn't work, number one. Or two, you can say, why can't the Palestinians go back to any of the other 49 Muslim states or 20 or so Arab states on the planet? Why do they have to have Israel? I'd be curious to hear them talk about that. There's just like a...
I guess that last question is, why do Palestinians have to have Israel? Why do Palestinians have to have Israel rather than go to surrounding Arab states? I think that's what he's asking. Why are you guys still talking about other countries in the middle of a desert and not about the crazy stuff your government does? Believe it or not, my friend, I can talk about all of these things. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. I have multiple interests. Just so happens, I saw this short and I wanted to see about answering these 5 questions. I myself being no expert, I thought I could do some research into this, get a better understanding of the world, figure out what he's talking about, and, grow myself as a human being. But I actually don't know much about this issue. So the whole idea behind this is, let's do some research. Let's figure out what's what. Did you ever see Destiny and President Sunday's brief convo? I did not. Let's see. Destiny and President Sunday. Okay, I don't see a video. Or let me rephrase that. I see plenty of videos. I don't see a video having to do with this. Unless I'm missing something. Thumbnail of Destiny is a mushroom. Am I missing something? Destiny as a mushroom? God, I feel like I could spend more time talking about Asmongold's crazy fucking takes. I actually wanted to do that. So I actually had a plan to watch some Asmongold, but I got distracted by another panel, and that was like with actual politicos and not like hack shit like Asmongold. But I got easily distracted. I have terrible ADHD, so shiny object will make me... Ooh, shiny object, Okay, unless I'm missing something, I don't see what you're talking about, bro. Am I kind of screaming? Is my mic too sensitive? Is it? Oh, I got the volume all the way up. That would be why. Is that better? My mistake. I didn't realize the volume was ticked all the way up like that. Oh, I got a new microphone recently. One does not simply read Anti-Oedipus. Okay. With Destiny's head as a mushroom. This guy is weird. Man, as this whole conflict's been going on for over a year now, it feels like we're in this giant black hole of... You think my videos are too loud? Hang on. Pop, 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 pop. Hello? It doesn't really seem too loud. I can adjust it more, but it's not like peaking, but I'll put it down to like 70%. Is that any better? I hope that's better. Okay. Oh my god, this guy... Wait a second. I remember this guy. Damn! He makes like actual money off this shit. Holy fuck. That's wild. maybe this is like confirmation bias or something, but I don't remember him being all that particularly insightful in the few times I've spoken to him. But people disagree. I don't know. Okay. I'm going to give up soon if I don't find this. Ooh. I'm going to give up on this if I don't find what you're talking about real soon. My God, this dude posts a lot. Oh my God, these are all long too. Holy shit, I have not checked in on his content. I'm really going to have to do some like actual prepared content for a change. Okay, I give up. I don't see it. Anyway, we are back to the more... Oh, well, now you give me the title. I guess I gotta look for it. This. Alright, we'll listen to it.
Hello.
Hi, what's up? Can you hear me?
Barely. You sound like you're in a tunnel. What can I do for you?
Oh,
Well, I don't know. Somebody told me you guys were talking about this stuff, and you said I was a big dummy, so...
I said way worse than that.
Oh, well...
I also called you short.
Yeah, well... Jesus Christ. Well, as long as you're not making fun of my elite rank, you know. Well, what's up? What do you think I've got super wrong?
What have you got super wrong?
Everything, bro.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't even talking about you tonight. With respect to what?
I'm just talking about your comments on me in general on this particular issue. It seems like you feel like I'm generally in the wrong on things, or I have a lot of things in the wrong. Or do we not disagree at all?
Well, I think advocating on behalf of the total displacement of the Palestinians in advance of learning about the topic is an extraordinarily reckless use of your platform.
Advocating for the total displacement of Palestinians. Has that actually Destiny's position? Does Destiny advocate for the... Yes, it's President Sunday. Does that Destiny advocate for the total displacement of Palestinians? I actually have no idea.
Okay. You mean like more substantive, or?
No, I'd say the this pro-genocide stuff kind of stands by itself.
Destiny's also pro-genocide. Damn, we are off to like a really good face start here.
Is that the only thing?
Like you said,
What am I cooking? Puma, I'm doing... This is a research stream to find out the answers to these hard-hitting, timely questions. The biggest one is about Anne Frank. Did Anne Frank die before she could resist? Okay, that's the one that needs answering. Are you guys able to hear the chat sound effect on through the video every time you guys say something? I'm wondering if that's just something here, because I don't remember turning anything on to hear that, but I am hearing it. Let me know.
worse. I don't really watch it that much. I see the clips people toss around.
Oh, well.
I mean, I'm also told you're researching it a lot more, so good for you. Glad to see that.
Yeah. Okay. So are we? So do we just? I don't know. What? Okay. Well, now
I don't know. You wanted to talk to me. I didn't call you in. Tony said that you wanted to chat.
Well, because everybody's saying you guys were talking about a bunch of stuff, and apparently you have like a bunch of disagreements with me or some shit. But now it's just
No, we were talking to a Middle East intelligence guy about Gaza. You weren't part of the conversation.
Well, yeah, clearly I'm not. Or wasn't? Yeah.
No, we didn't mention you once. I don't think.
I'll see if I can turn off
We
that
did.
thing.
Slipped my memory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess are you a two-stater or a one-stater or?
Enable notifications. Is that what this is?
A one-stater just pragmatically.
Done.
I'm not sure how on earth you would get a two-state solution, or why anybody in the region would agree to having an extra competitor.
Hang on, he's a one-stater just pragmatically. Okay, what's the demographic makeup of this one state? right? Is it a democracy? What's its system of government? If it's going to be a system where you've got Jews in a minority group just getting outvoted by Muslim Palestinians who now get a chance to affect their revenge, we're just revisiting Rwanda. Like, it's just the Rwandan genocide. Right, maybe not immediately, but, you know, give it a few decades. It's just brewing conditions for the same kind of shit that happened in Rwanda.
On their border.
Do you think a one-state solution is very realistic? Isn't there already kind of like a competitor on the border?
I mean, we're going to be real honest. There isn't one state already. It's just Israel. That's the one state.
Who are you referring to? Not Gaza, surely.
Or wait, who's the extra competitor? I thought you meant like Israel being a competitor.
No,
with the
in the
other
event
states.
in the event of a robust two-state situation where you have multiple states, you'd have essentially the establishing of a neighboring state with a deep cultural resentment against Israel, a casus belli for taking back any territory it tries to.
Casus belli, whatever, Latin. No, I'm not. At least I don't think I'm going to be debating Destiny or anything like that. I thought I turned this notification sound off. No, I'm not debating Destiny. I'm not really interested in doing that. I'd get my ass kicked. I am the first and probably the only person in this space to even admit he knows absolutely fuck all about the conflict. I do. I know fuck all about the conflict. This is an attempt to just figure out more because I saw what I see are the clips everybody else posts or the reactions to those clips everybody else posts, which itself has just evolved into a bigger drama that's become almost a metaphor for the state of American politics now. People who spend less time talking to each other and more time talking about each other and then describing those people as genocidal or terrorist supporting or something to that effect. So, like everybody else, I'm just there for the ride. I'm enjoying you could say it's drama, but I feel like that betrays the more substantive parts of it as well. But I'm just here to enjoy it. So the point of this Puma is just to do research for a video in which I respond to this, but nothing. No, I'm not going to be debating Destiny. At least I don't plan to, unless there's something I can debate him on. But I doubt it. I absolutely do not know anything about this issue. I was talking to Denying History earlier to try to figure shit out about it. But how do I turn off the sound notification? This is going to drive me insane. This is going to kill me. No, don't open that. These guys know nothing about the history of the area. Well, good news, Alan Bistard MP. I know nothing about it either. They've done a bunch of streams on the issue, and they suffered through the whole Lex Friedman debate even. That does sound like a suffering. And the few times I've talked to him, we've gotten along fine. I just don't know what I could like contribute to this overall conversation that everybody's interested in having. This is just me trying to learn my way around it. The few times I've talked to him, though, he seems fine. Okay, this is going to kill me. I can't figure this out. How to turn off audio ding on Streamlabs OBS. Adjust the alert box. Okay. Where's that at? Alert box. Because this didn't used to play. And now it does. And I don't know why that's the case. Go to widgets, then go to alert box. Okay. Please hold while I figure out. Pro streamer, by the way. Pro streamer. Okay, the what? None of these are what I need. So then what explains this? Or should I even care? This is kind of ruining everything. Go to advanced audio settings. Advanced audio. Pro streamer, by the way. Pro streamer. You know what? I give up. Deal with it. I'll figure it out later. Unless anybody else has insights, I'll deal with it later.
In the future, should it ever gain the power to do so. There's just no reason for Israel to ever acquiesce to a two-state solution. Even during Oslo, when they were proposing the Pisgah, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but the Pisgah, oh my God, your hair's brown again. The Pisgah government plan, that was.
Okay. Hang on, we're gonna see that smile again.
Oh my God, your hair's brown again. The Pisgah.
Okay. Tell me that's not this shit. It kinda. Read the transfer agreement by Edwin Black. What is the? How long is the read? Is this? Is it going to tell me anything I'm going to learn anyway? Oh, this is a whole book. Okay. Yeah. I'm not reading that.
Government plan that was edging towards the possibility of a state situation. That wasn't. Nobody considers a two-state solution as such. I think to be feasible. I don't think the PLO does.
I thought that the general consensus isn't like UN consensus and worldwide consensus that the only workable solution is a two-state solution.
I don't know what the stats are overall in terms of how popular the thing is. I mean, insofar as a two-state solution is equivocated with the autonomy of the Palestinian people in like a rudimentary self-governing sense, maybe. But when we're talking about statehood, we're talking fundamentally about sovereignty over the totality of actions that a community takes. We're not talking just about like they get to hold their own courts and whatnot internally. Right?
Well, isn't a two-state solution supposed to essentially establish Palestine as a separate state? Isn't that the whole point? And then there are obviously some concessions made with regards to Israel, like not building an air.
There's something I want to say like messianic, but I'm thinking like paradise. I can't think of the word, but like it's a little bit like how everybody's got this odd vision for what heaven is supposed to be like, but nothing's actually grounded or concrete. It's just a lot of different wishes that could conflict, and some of it doesn't even make sense. I have no idea what a Palestinian state would look like. I don't think anybody advocating for a one-state solution really does have the semblance of, I don't think. Well, I shouldn't say I don't think. Just I don't know, right? You're not going to have these two populations coexist. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to be peaceful. There's too much historical scars between these two people. And I think if you look at the South Africa situation and think, well, they can do a truth and reconciliation, agreement, a commission to resolve these past historical scars, I think this is wishful thinking. I think we're past that. If nothing else, October 7th ruined any chances for that ever to happen. Like if I'm a Jew and I'm living in Israel, and I could think like any number of things about the government and its disgusting treatment of people, but when I see like Hamas paraglide over, right, like they're ISIS's personal air force or something like that, and then just start mowing down fucking kids at a music festival and doing these mass rapes, it's a little bit like America post 9/11, where anybody just vaguely brown was like looked at suspiciously. You say thank God when an airplane lands, nobody bats an eye. You say Allahu Akbar when a plane lands, suddenly they want to have some chat with you about some concerns, that kind of shit, right? So I imagine October 7th probably uncorked something that you can't recork. We're never getting to a peaceful resolution here with one state, especially if Hamas doesn't, if Hamas doesn't just get destroyed as an organization. Is there a country that coexists with two former rivals as populations? I mean, you could say East Germany and West Germany. But I mean, I'm not sure that like East Germany and West Germany, I wouldn't even consider like two former rivals. I mean, these are separations of circumstances, a consequence of Second World War. The Palestinians and Jews of Israel, they have a lot of animus towards each other that is very historically grounded and very understandable. This is why I'm saying I'm not entirely comfortable with my depth of knowledge on this topic, which is part of the reason I'm doing this research. I'm not entirely comfortable with my depth of knowledge on this topic, right? But I feel like if you go into this with this mode of thought that Israel, it's always America, that's a Freudian slip, but Israel represents this sort of an imperialist evil, and the Palestinian Arabs represent this sort of a colonialized victim, right, of an indigenous people. I think you're missing so much of the nuance. It's just going to like kill any chance of an actual real conversation. And that's why I don't generally talk about this. I can't have a real conversation on this. I don't know the history of this. I've learned the bit that I've learned about it doesn't make it seem like anybody is like, there's not a clear good guy versus bad guy kind of thing. Other than like Hamas. I mean, clearly Hamas are bad guys. But it's no, I don't think you're going to have peace between these two groups. I don't think that's reasonable to expect. I don't think there's two rivals anywhere else in history that's really analogous to this kind of a situation. I think it's unique in its own right. But like I said, I got to learn more about it, and part of that's, watching these videos and making that response. Okay, I wrote down the 5 questions. We're kind of getting off the 5 questions, but we'll keep watching this.
Force or some number of radar stations or military bases. I think it was radar stations being ran in the West Bank.
I have no idea. All I know is that if you're giving Palestinians autonomy over their territory in the form of like sovereign statehood, you're setting up an organization that has the capacity to wage war on the basis of border disputes and have international recognition for it. I don't know.
Isn't one of the reasons why they're waging war right now because they don't have borders? Like, arguably, wouldn't giving them their own state be a way of alleviating those conditions? The apartheid conditions would disappear because now they'd run their own state. They'd have their own government. They could engage with other people.
The apartheid conditions aren't intrinsically connected to that. Right now, when Hamas militants make an incursion against Israeli civilians, Israel is able to just start bombing without having to reckon with intruding upon another state's sovereign territory or some such. If Palestinian occupied territories became the territory of a separate state, that wouldn't be the case.
Are you sure?
I'm not necessarily. I feel like Israel has had no problem violating the sovereign territory of well-established and legitimate states already. Like, isn't that kind of like the source of a lot of the animus in the Middle East, is that Israel kind of acts like a rogue actor? It's sort of a rogue state that carries out airstrikes in Syria and airstrikes in Lebanon that, it's not like it's being, directed against, it's not like they're doing like a formal declaration of war or anything. Like, they do these strikes all the time. But I don't know. We'll see what Sunday's answer is.
Well, it depends on whether or not they were honored.
Hasn't historically Israel engaged in bombing territory belonging formerly to Egypt? Haven't they engaged in
Yo, it's like two minds, right? Two brains think alike, that whole thing.
bombing territory belonging to Jordan, belonging to Lebanon, belonging to Syria? I think they've even flown missions into
maybe
Iraq.
maybe it wouldn't make a difference. Maybe the international community wouldn't give a shit, but then begs the question why we bother one way or the other.
Well, the bother would be so that Palestinians finally have their own state instead of living under like a perpetual military occupation, which kind of sucks right now.
Yeah, sure, but you can achieve that with simply autonomous self-governance, right? You don't need to occupy those.
What is autonomous self, like Crimea and Ukraine, or like just like an autonomous region of Israel? Or
well, typically it means that some vassal organization like the PA is responsible for maintaining law and order within Palestine, and then can run its own courts and can make some like basic internal decisions about the allocation of resources. Usually with like key restrictions on you have no control over land, you have no control over water. You have like limited capacity to develop. You can't control your borders, things of that sort. But you still have like, it's like a.
Wait, do you think that Palestinians would want to live as like a vassal state?
Yeah, I'm not even clear like what he's getting at here. Why would you want a system where you don't have control over your land or don't have control over your resources? And I don't think this is what Hamas is expecting either, but whatever.
Israel? Wouldn't that be like the worst of all the solutions?
Well, I didn't say it was a popular idea. I'm just saying, like, what you're describing could be had without that. If you're talking about sovereignty, you're talking fundamentally about investing.
Well, no, living as a vassal state is different than having like your own borders in your own country. Like, there's a difference between being a semi-autonomous region versus like being your own country, right? It's not, you can't accomplish the same thing. Those are two different things, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is there's no reason for the neighbors of Palestinian territories to acquiesce to a sovereign state, because precisely that they can.
Wait, why would they? What do you mean by there's no pressure for the neighbors to acquiesce to? Are you talking about Israel?
Well, I'm talking about Israel and everywhere else. I
Well,
mean,
we can start with Israel. Like, isn't it Israel's prerogative to finally get the international community and everybody off their backs, and then to not have to worry about administering to these zones anymore? Wouldn't it be good for them to finally have the Palestinians have?
Okay, I don't know what I'm gaining out of this, but we do have to do this resistance. So, Palestinian Civil War, 1947, that thing. We must do our research. First question. Who started the war in 47? It was the Palestinians who fired first. Thanks for that. He spoiled the answer. We don't necessarily disagree, but let's look into it. 1947 to 1948 Civil War in Mandatory Palestine was the first phase of the 1947 to 1949 Palestine War. God damn, they sure have a lot of wars, don't they? Oh, man. Okay, I'm recognizing this is why I didn't do this research the first time. I'm really disappointed you are not centering our black queens at the moment that these microaggressions are threatening their lives. Don't care. During the Civil War, the Jewish and Arab communities of Palestine clashed, the latter supported by the Arab Liberation Army. So the Arabs were supported by... who's these cats? While the British, who had the obligation to maintain order, organized their withdrawal and intervened only on an occasional basis. Oh, Belgium and Rwanda kind of thing. All right, who are these cats? Arab Liberation Army, Army of volunteers from Arab countries, fought the Arab side. So it's just a volunteer militia. Is that my understanding? Am I understanding this correctly? They don't have any like real legitimacy. It's just a volunteer militia. Okay. I'll have to look into it. Okay, wait, hang on. Back to ChatGPT. Tell me everything about the 1947 Palestine Civil War. Bullet point. Keep points simple and bullet pointed. Add a chronology. What caused the war? Who were the belligerents? I don't know if I'm spelling belligerents correctly. I am not. I don't know how to spell. I am stupid. All right, let's just hope this keeps it simpler. All right, ChatGPT research. Because it doesn't even last a year. Goal was control of Palestine after British withdrawal. Okay, I think I remember reading something about here. The British organized their withdrawal. Nice. Cutesy shit. Part of the broader war, though, caused by the UN partition plan. Well, for one, Broody, I don't speak French. Mein Frenche ist nicht gut. That's why. Okay, so Jews accepted the plan. Arabs rejected the plan. Does the plan have to be unanimous? Interesting. End of the British Mandate. And it left the power vacuum. Okay. There's like this French one supposedly better too. Well, I don't know what to say. Haganah Defense Force Palmach Elite Unit. I don't know how you pronounce these. Ergun in Lehi. Yeah, so I was talking to Denying about him. He seemed to call out these groups a lot as like what are functionally terrorist groups. And when I was doing my reading initially, these guys had been around since the 30s and were basically doing terrorist attacks and massacres and shit. But it's something I'm gonna have to look more into. Do you know what can you tell me about Irgun, Mr. Green? Like they're on my list of shit to look into. Arabs protest, riots, and the first attacks. Arab militias began attacking Jewish convoys and neighborhoods. So, wars caused by UN partition plan. Arab militias attack Jewish bus. I know it doesn't say this here. I remember looking into it. It started by a bus attack initially. Oh, this is in phases. Holy fuck. This was one of those things Denying was talking about. Part of a series on the Nakba. Zionist paramilitaries attack village of Deir Yassin near Jerusalem, then part of Mandatory Palestine, killing at least 107 Palestinian Arab villagers, including women and children. Attack was conducted primarily by the Ergun in Lehi, who were supported by the Haganah and the Palmach. Massacre was carried out despite the village having agreed to a non-aggression pact. It occurred during the 47 to 48 Civil War and was a central component of the Nakba. Okay. I'm going to assume when you say they all were kind of, I think you mean they were all kind of terror groups. I was gathering that, yeah. No, I don't want to... This motherfucker thinks I'm doing this for a lesson. Why did the Arabs reject the partition plan? Does this have anything to do with the white paper or the previous Arab uprising in the 30s? Let's just ask ChatGPT. It's Französisch, French, just so you learned our great language. You know what I've actually been trying to do is like talk to ChatGPT in German, because you have like this AI function. So I was like, certainly they can. Können Sie helfen mich mit meinem Deutsch?
Natürlich, ich helfe dir gerne mit deinem Deutsch. Was möchtest du üben oder wissen?
Shut the fuck up.
Kein
All right, there you go. I don't even know what I said, but okay. Yeah, so that's how I've been like practicing. They assisted Lord Moyne Count. Holy shit. Is that the guy's actual name? Lord Moyne Count Bernadotte? That's insane. King David Hotel bombing, the Lavon affair, hanging and gutting of Sergeant. Holy shit. Hang on, I'm going to have to look into that shit too now. Let's see. 1946. So this is before the Civil War even happens. The Irgun placed this. Okay. Happens during backdrop of terrorist attacks by Zionist groups such as Irgun and what was the other one called? I was learning this on the second spot here, but Lehi. Is there a wiki on this? Or can I just... Oh, holy shit. Wait, this is a whole thing. They assassinated 2 dudes and bombed a hotel. Okay. Well, what I'm gathering is that the war doesn't just spring out of nowhere, right? And it's not... I think you could say it's caused by the UN partition plan, but I feel like that's a bit of an oversimplification. There's been, numerous terrorist attacks by Zionist groups this whole time. And I remember reading about this thing called the White Paper that the Brits promised to the Arabs in the region, like, hey, we're going to... Remember that whole Balfour Declaration that we kind of just foisted on you? We changed our mind. We're going to stop Jewish immigration, and we're not going to commit to making a Jewish state, and it's like all this different stuff. And then the UN partition plan's like, actually, takesy backsies again. We're gonna do all that stuff we said we wouldn't do. But I still got to look more into it. Happens during backdrop terrorist attacks by Zionist groups such as Irgun and Lehi, such as... Oh, what was it called? The hotel bombing? King David hotel bombing? I shouldn't write key figures. I have no idea who these people are. Lord Moyne. Can I just open an article on this? Oh, that sounds so intriguing. I have actually thought about teaching abroad. My home is here, my family's here, and there's this girl that I've been dating for about 1.5 years now, and I'm really in love, and I want to ask her to marry me, and I don't want to leave Germany and go to leave to Germany and then, miss out. But I have thought about that. I do appreciate that note. Okay, so. Oof. There's a lot of shit here. Okay, what was I reading? I already went through that. Jews were about 30% of population, but were promised about 50% of land. That can be a little unfair. I could see why you could feel, unfair about that. Oh, let's be accurate. 33%. With all my fancy schmancy ChatGPT research. The Arabs lived in territory. True, okay. You make it sound so intriguing, my friend. Maybe. Maybe. It's not something I'm not against. It's not something I'm against. I got to look into it. That's all I can say about it is I got to look into it more. Like many things I must look into. Who knows in a few months? Who knows? But we'll see, because it's not exactly lucrative teaching. Teaching's not exactly fun or lucrative work. It's very, very frustrating work. No, in Freedom Land here in the USA, ironically, we don't pay a lot of taxes. It's funny because that's like the one thing everybody and their mother bitches about here. But if you look at like our tax rates compared to the rest of the world, we are way under them. Our income taxes are lower. We don't pay a value added tax for anything. We don't have no national sales tax. This is shit they have everywhere else in the world. You know, we really are an undertaxed nation, and it shows, right? Our schools are in disrepair. Our infrastructure grade was like a C by the Army Corps of Engineers. We have no real healthcare program, despite having the most. We spend more on healthcare than like any other country in the world, right? And we've got like no results to show for it. Our money's allocated in so many different directions. It's just inefficient. Like I'm not even against government efficiency, vis-a-vis Doge. It's just not applied appropriately. I remember reading a report once that there's something like 1 trillion in potential waste that could be found in the Pentagon, which sounds like insane. So I, grain of salt that, take it with a pinch. But I just, for our tax dollars, we don't get a lot out of it, and it's because we don't pay a lot. And it's because we don't want to pay a lot. And it's really unfortunate when conservatives talk about being fiscally responsible. Firstly, they only give a shit about fiscal responsibility when a Democrat's in charge. That's the only time they give a shit about fiscal responsibility. But when conservatives talk about fiscally responsible, they always have this misguided idea that fiscal responsibility means cutting spending, and cutting taxes. And it's just not the case. Fiscal responsibility means living within your means, right? And we're running a massive debt, and we're running budget deficits constantly. And Republicans are like, let's just cut the amount of revenue coming into government. Let's cut the IRS. The one thing that is actually like revenue positive, right? The one thing that brings in handedly more revenue than it takes out of the federal budget. They want to get rid of that. So don't take them seriously when they talk about it. Our tax system is all kinds of fucked. Our taxes are actually really low, and they probably shouldn't be. You can make a case for why they shouldn't be. Plus, it would have it would push down on inflationary pressure. That's the other thing. What is inflation? But it's too many dollars chasing too few goods. You raise taxes. You add more tax brackets. That would be a way you could solve that. Or, ironically, one way you could have solved it was open up your borders for more immigration. But clearly we're never doing that again. But okay, anyway, back to the conflict. We're gonna solve Middle East peace. Okay, back to this. Okay. I'm just going to say plus assassinations. I'll read about it later. But I guess the bigger question is who started the war, right? The Arabs don't shoot up buses for nothing. Right, something incites this. If you want to say it's the UN partition plan, you can say that, but that feels like an overly simplified answer. There's other things here. So you have these backdrops, and then you have the terms of the white paper. Terms and conditions of white paper were violated by partition plan. Or something to that effect. I don't want to say terms and conditions. It sounds like terms of service. I'll just say terms of white paper were violated by partition plan. Oh my God, they really want me to add all these articles. There, you happy? I added articles. Okay, I think we got our first one done. Who started the war in 47? It's Palestinians who fired first. Okay, sure. Palestinian militias fired on a bus. I remember reading about a bus. Oh, what was that bus attack? Bus attack, 1947, Israel. I was reading about it earlier. Better include a Wikipedia citation to that shit. An egged bus, as in people threw eggs at it? Oh, okay, this is interesting. Arab militias fired on a bus. Oh, let's just do this. Arab militias, which I can't spell correctly, fired on bus in retaliation. Or, okay, fired on bus in maybe retaliation. Be clear with our language. Attack. So let's read about the assassination thing. The Shubaki family assassination was the summary execution of 5 adult members of the Shubaki family in the village of Arab al-Shibaki, Mandatory Palestine, on 19th of November 1947 by Lehi, a Zionist paramilitary and militant organization, on suspicions that members of the family had acted as informants for the British police. Okay. Summary executions of 5 people. Attack followed a period of relative calm for several months, during which Zionist violence was almost exclusively directed at British presence rather than Palestinians, raising fears of against retaliation by the Yishuv. According to Morris, was the majority view that the Haganah intelligence service that was the primary motive of the attackers was retaliation for the Shabaki killings. This was supported by an Arab flyer posted shortly after on the walls in Jaffa or Haffa. I have no idea how you pronounce this stuff. Hang on. Didn't it start by the Arabs forming units in Palestine to enforce more land for Arabs because they had been resettled? So my understanding here is that you've got this region, Mandatory Palestine. It's being administered by the British after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. And they have this declaration, the Balfour Declaration, where they basically say, yo, we're going to take all this land and we're going to make a Jewish home state out of it. Now, naturally, there's some Arabs living there, and there's some tensions that happen over that, but there's also this broader movement of Jews, this Zionist movement, that want to establish a homeland, and this historical homeland that is this region of Palestine or Israel, right? Some 2,000 years ago, you might have heard. They engage in terrorist attacks against the British. So my reading of Irgun and Lehi is that they attacked the British in an attempt to establish a Jewish homeland. There was a lot of authority within the British government that like facilitated immigration to Palestine by Jews, right? So you had a lot of Jews going to Palestine, which upset a lot of the Arabs who were living there. These Arabs ended up revolting in the 30s. So these Arabs end up revolting in the 30s, and the British do this thing called the White Paper, where it's like, we super duper swear after having, dealt with you Arabs that we're not going to establish a Jewish state here, and we're also going to stop the Jews from immigrating, or we're going to cap their immigration, something like that, right? World War II happens. I need to figure out what's going on during World War II for this whole time. But after World War II, the UN, this ends up getting administered by the UN instead of Britain, and they come up with this partition plan in 47. And this partition plan is agreed to by the Jews, who get like 50% of the land, despite being like 33% of the population, but disagreed to by the Arabs, who naturally rise up. So it starts with a bus attack. That's the first thing that happens. You have a bunch of like Arab militias that attack this bus full of Jews and end up killing like 11 of them or something like that. So that's where I'm at right now, because that's kind of like the catalyst for this conflict. But as I'm reading more and more of it, it's also like, you know, there's a bit of other context that's relevant to this. Like maybe the bus attack was actually revenge for these summary executions by these kind of Zionist terror groups. That's a very rudimentary understanding of it, and everything I say you should take with a massive grain of salt, because like I said, I am no expert on this. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I am as equally as informed as every other moron on this topic, and if they don't know what they're talking about, and you know they don't, assume I don't, right? Assume none of us do. I'm just doing this reading because I was interested in this video I saw from Destiny asking these 5 questions for people who support Palestine, which to me meant like you could support Palestine with a 2-state solution, but he's very keen on zeroing in on this idea of a 1-state. I'm not interested in 1-state. I don't think a 1-state solution is feasible. I don't think a 1-state solution is realistic. I don't think Jews in Israel are ever going to get rid of a Jewish identity state, right? Jewish identitarian state. What's functionally an ethno state. Because citizenship is like guaranteed if you're Jewish, and there's a Jewish right of return to Israel, right? So Arabs there really are kind of like second-class citizens. I don't see that changing after October 7th. Like, there's no way they're going to get rid of that. Or they're going to dissolve their borders and find the errors of their ways and live in peace and harmony with the Palestinian Arabs after October 7th. That's no way. So we're on team 2-state solution, so half of this we don't even have to answer, right? Does 1-state solution mean unlimited right of return? It's unlimited? No. Nobody's having that. It's not going to be 1-state solution. Would Jews trust Arabs? Seems obvious. The answer is no. For the same reason the Arabs wouldn't trust Jews. Why do Palestinians have to have Israel rather than go to surrounding Arab states? You could say the same about Jews. I think he kind of did. I'm not interested in making that argument. No, the original terrorists were Jews, not Arabs. Yeah, I think I said that. The Zionist movement was initially like a terrorist movement. The Lehi group, and like I said, I'm just learning about this stuff. But from when I'm reading, these guys were like being super terroristic and shit, like well before 47 ever happened, right? Well before there was that civil war and the terrorist attack against the bus. Nothing wrong with ethno states, but Jews don't deserve one. Okay, where do the Jews go? Where do the Jews live? All people have rights to self-determinations, my friend. Anyway, back to the topic. We were reading about this massacre. About the Lehi children thing. Okay. Yeah, but certainly you don't see that we're ever going to go back to this situation where I assume you mean Jews shared Palestine with Christians and Muslims in relative harmony. We're not going to that. Certainly you see we're not going to be going to that. And as a German, you especially should not comment about where other people should live. It's kind of your fault, Germany. Hope you realize that. Okay. Final stages of Jewish insurgency. British intelligence made aware that the Lehi were holding a firearms course for young members in Ra'anana and surrounding the building. Man, I cannot pronounce this shit. I am so white. The British respondents shot dead 5 members of Lehi with no British deaths or injuries in what is known as the Lehi Children Affair. According to eyewitness testimony and the Lehi account, 4 unarmed teenage members, 15 and 18, were fatally shot with their 19-year-old instructor as they tried to run away from the house. Wait, these were shot by the British? Okay. I'm wondering why would they shoot an Arab family? Okay, counter narrative. Police files that were released to the public later in 2021 indicated that the order to raid the house had been approved directly by the British government in London. Well, the police records do state the British were under danger. It does not mention at what moment the officers started shooting. Also confirms the victims were already running out of the building when they were killed. A little hard to say that you're in danger while they're running away, but, we'll see. Leahy retaliated with terrorist attacks against the British. That is so like them. Ooh, okay. So this is like a straight up terrorist attack. Okay, so the Leahy are running an insurgency against the British consisting of terror attacks. They have a location in which they are having a firearms course for young members of the Leahy when the British go in and they kill 5 members there. Most of them kids. And by kids, we mean unarmed teenagers. Okay, 15 to 18 and 19 years old. So kids like, the fighting age. They're fighting age, but okay. So they go in, they kill these fighting age males during a time of a terrorist insurgency by the Leahy. And the Leahy get their revenge killing. So they kill a British soldier near Haifa. Ooh, look at that skyline. That's beautiful. They attack patrons of the Ritz coffee shop in Jerusalem, injuring 28 people. I guess killing nobody. Then kill 2 British policemen in Jerusalem. So just a lot of terrorism. They do a little bit of terrorism. And then they enact some punishment against the Shubaki family on November 19th. Okay. The Leahy militants were dressed as police and told the Mukhtar, village head, to gather all the men in the village and select 5 of them. They took unarmed men to a nearby field and executed them. Just summary executions, huh? So this is just a blatant terrorist attack. I'm not the person to ask if you're right with that. I have no idea. So who fired first? You could say it's the Leahy in a way. Because I'm sure if you were asking the militants in the Fajr bus attack, they'd say the Leahy fired first when they summarily executed 5 Palestinian Arabs. Hang on, I must send this to Denying so he can take a look at my outline this so far. And let him give me some insights here. Okay, that's the Nakba one. Okay. Gute Nacht, my guy. Gute Nacht. Why is it titled Anne Frank, he asks. I should add a note about like condemning Hamas or supporting Hamas. It's why I watched the content nuke with the Ethan Klein thing. It is wild to me that Hassan makes more money than I will ever make with the values he has. It's just un-American. Fuck, it really does. It never seems like he has much to say on anything. It seems like he talks at you a lot and he kind of bumbles his way through it. He doesn't know what he wants to say on this particular topic or any of these particular issues. He just starts from this point a priori, right? First principle is America's bad, the West is bad, and now how do I branch out from there? And he works backwards from that conclusion. It's always like, it's so fucking cringe watching him. Like, God, like imagine this poor guy. I don't know. I'm not into Twitch politics anymore. I'm not into Twitch anymore, right? I don't know who half these people are, but imagine like one of the biggest streamers in the world invites you to his house and puts out some terrorist propaganda, and he's laughing the whole time. It's like, isn't this so based? While you're watching these poor fucking people like get kidnapped off a fucking boat. Like, hot damn. How do I get canceled for some of the problematic shit I say? Damn, that's like a whole other level. But that's all right, whatever. I feel like I want to talk a little bit about that. Oh, you can't comment. Maybe you should feel like I want to add some information about why terrorism's bad, why you shouldn't support it. I feel like that shouldn't be a thing you'd need to say, but I don't know. Maybe we could benefit from a little bit more insight and somebody saying. Okay, let's read about the King David Hotel bombing. %55%. It's good to have a historian as a friend. I've got a magic man doing my editing for me. The funny part was he was convinced he wouldn't. He was convinced he was convinced I'd have to do all the work. Joke's on him. White paper was not accepted by the Mufti. Wait. Hmm. Oh, good. I get to use somebody else's source here. Yeah, I'm really using ChatGPT. One of the most enduring myths about the 1948 Arab-Israeli War is that Arab Goliath attacked the newly established state of Israel with the goal of annihilation. The evidence presented in support of this claim is the apocryphal genocidal threat by Abd al-Rahman Azam Pasha. I'm going to even try this. I feel like Hassan when I do this, like my fake Arabism, which they feel envisioned the expulsion, razing, and mass murder of the Jewish community within mandate Palestine. The image remains powerful enough for those whose work undermines it to invoke this picture in their defense when facing criticism for offensive comments. Citation point 1. Oh, it's Benny Morris. Interesting. No, this is not to debate Destiny. I would get demolished. I know nothing about this. Is it this?
I have an entire bookcase on modern Palestinian history.
What led to the Nakba? And you seem to just say a decade of stuff. That's not true. So you understand that this historian that you cited agrees with me, right?
You just named one. The King David Hotel bombing was 1937.
No,
2
that was
years
in
before the migration.
No, I'm pretty sure that was 10 years later. I think that happened in maybe 46.
I am a big brain smarty pants, but no, I'm doing this so I can learn more. Well, okay. I wanted to respond to the... I wanted to respond to a this Destiny short where he's like, there's 5 questions Palestinian supporters will never answer. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm a Palestinian supporter. Let me see if I can answer these 5 questions. Turns out like 3 of them don't even apply to me. But I am interested in that. That is the one. My guy, it's 5 hours. I don't think I'm going to be able to watch, well, not on stream, but...
Hello?
There we go, Liam.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Not much.
This guy's
Just grading
beard
papers.
is amazing.
Or was anyway.
Very nice, very nice.
Liam, do you want to intro? Oh, I guess you can talk about it. I was gonna say, Liam, if you want to introduce yourself.
Well, I mean, is this like streaming somewhere or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say all 3 of us have met at different points.
Mm-hmm.
Liam O'Mara, I'm a professor of history. I'm technically a.
Yeah, let's give it a listen for a few minutes.
Historian of ideas and cultures, but my main areas are the Middle East and Europe, and I work a lot on Israel, Palestine, and things like that. So
Cool. And then also, I interviewed you a long time ago when you were running for, I think you were running for Congress, right?
I was indeed, yeah. My short career as an anti-politician.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All right. So, okay, where do we start? Where do you want to go?
Well, we could talk. I mean, probably the best thing is to start off where we were talking, which is kind of early, because Destiny doesn't know too much about this. I was a little foggy on the dates, so I didn't want to give any misinformation to be accurate, which is kind of pre-1920. What did that migration look like from Jewish people into Palestine? To give an overall of Destiny's point, I think Liam's watching me your streams too, so he might have points he wants to touch on too, which is Destiny's point is like, hey, they legally bought the land in these areas, and correct me if I'm wrong, Destiny, I never want to misquote you, but they bought the land, and then from there, they had all right because the Palestinians technically never owned the land.
Oh, fuck. Did I just do a pro streamer moment and say that whole thing with my mic muted? I'm a genius. I remember talking to Denying about this, and I remember the big hoofah being with the purchase of the land was not necessarily the legality of it. I think everything's supposed to be above board and it's legal. I think the issue was that the people that the land was being bought from were like absentee landlords who weren't really there, didn't really administer the land in any way. It were just paper titles that ended up exchanging hands. But when the Jews ended up getting a hold of it, they're basically like to all the Arabs who were living there, fuck off. We bought it from under you. Get fucked. But I truly don't know the full details of this. I'm just going off what I heard.
And because the Ottomans did, and then Britain did, so then they had the right to kind of take it. So is that quick? I know there's a lot to it, but does that quickly kind of touch on things, Destiny?
I would say that arguing that land purchases that happened under the Ottoman Empire are like super immoral or should have never happened. I think that's a really foggy claim to make. My understanding is most of the land that Jews bought was bought under the Ottoman Empire, and that most of the purchases were done then. That's like a discrete claim about that. I don't know if I would argue that justifies anything before or after, but that's like the discrete claim I would make from that area. Yeah.
So on land purchases, which are only legal after the reforms in the end of the 1850s, but then suddenly you can purchase land. They did later try to prevent, non-citizens from purchasing land, and then people proceeded to keep doing so illegally. Most of the land ends up in the hands of a handful of absentee landowners, though. There's a handful of Palestinian landowners who do pretty well, and a whole lot of people way outside of Palestine that snap up all the land because most people didn't understand the shift from usufruct rights to private property rights. So, they just thought, well, governments have only ever drafted me and taxed me, so this is a scam. So people didn't get it. So most of the land in Palestine ended up, essentially in the hands of people far outside the empire. And then people went to them and purchased the land from people in Istanbul. But I'm not sure where you're going with land purchases anyway. By the time you get to 1948, they still had only purchased 6% of the land. So it's not a huge number either way.
Yeah, sure. I don't know what part of this is or what.
No. I just want to talk a little bit about that, and then so kind of leading into it.
They're only purchasing about 6% of the land, and the partition plan gives them 55% of the land. Hang on. What is this? False symmetry made here. False symmetry made here. As Ben Ami pointed out in his book, Israel is particularly fond of the awkwardly false symmetry she makes between the Palestinian refugee crisis. Were Jews evicted out of neighboring Arab states in a similar fashion to the Nakba? Let's ask ChatGPT. Farhud pogrom in 1941. I think they were occupied by Germany in 1941. I actually don't know. I remember Iraq. No, was it? Oh, maybe it was. Somewhere in the Middle East, there were big fears about Germany occupying the land. So the Soviet Union and the United States did a "we're here for your protection" kind of thing and just took it over. And the British, I think they did that with Iran. I see I've missed a bit more. Am I going to read into Destiny's notes at all? Send me them. I didn't know he took notes. Destiny won't necessarily rely on facts. He will BS his way through. What facts Why don't you tell me, Alan? What are the relevant facts here? What facts do I need to know? All right, these are the questions he asked. These 5 questions. What are the facts I need to know about these? And mind you, I don't know anything. I'm fully open about that. I don't know shit about this conflict. I'm doing homework. Yeah, sure. Link it. Send me that shit. Okay, this is like a long read here. Oh, neat. I was kind of right, though. Okay, well, dude, I haven't been, like... Where would I find this? I haven't checked in on this shit in forever. Also, these t-shirts can get way more expensive. Did not see it if you linked it. Well, I'll take your word for it. I wouldn't even know who to... Tracking the constitutional crisis. Wait, can I type on this? Okay, I was about to say that would be weird. Oh, I feel like there's so much more you could be adding to this, too. I remember taking notes similar to this when I was doing my... So when I first got back in this, I had this 2v1 debate against Admiral Gibbs in Pentuple TV, who is just a phenomenally retarded human being. Fuck, and I can't see... I don't see my notebook. I don't remember where it is. But I took, like, a shitload of notes on it. I didn't even get to use, like, half of them. But it was all about stuff about how, like everything Trump had done in, like, his first 2 weeks had been, like... very out of the norm, undemocratic, devoid of any oversight by Congress, complete purging of anybody who would give him any oversight. He fired, members of the military JAG, right, as well as the top generals of the military. So it's like, oh, that's suspicious. Then he fired all the inspector generals, the actual people who were supposed to look for waste, fraud, and abuse. He did a lot of shit that was like, wow, this looks like some crazy shit. Could use those notes again. I should make a video on that. This one. Or is it debate strategy? No. Oh my. Hang on, there is a lot here. Violence of the Second Intifada. Yeah, the first one was like all civil disobedience shit, right? Second one had like way more terrorism. Highlight the tabs, look, and send you an image on Discord. Okay. Debate prep, governments, militaries, people. Okay, well, I think I'm on the debate prep tab now, aren't I? Yeah. Oh, God, he debated fucking Andrew Wilson. I didn't know who the fuck Andrew Wilson was until I debated him. That guy is fucking cancer. I'm half sure he was drunk. Okay, well, I don't see it in the debate prep one. I mean, this is all like interesting stuff. Legal, no. Sursock purchases. Oh, wait, hang on. This is some crazy shit. What is this interactive graph? Oh, that's cool. I need to do something like this too. That's terror, right? So what's he got for them? Nothing. Okay. Hang on. I'm just learning shit. Yeah, I think for the actual shit, you're just going to have to send it to me, but... Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to get all of this. Oh my God. Okay. Thanks for the notes. I'm going to look over that, like, on my own time. Fuck, you distracted me. What was I doing? Oh, we were watching this shit, weren't we?
Destiny's point of view is like he's 50-50 on like justification.
Oh wait, just give us like a time period we can talk about it. You know, I can explain my point. You have to explain for me. Just give me like what time period you want to talk about it. Yeah, and I can give.
Well, we can talk about. You want to talk about the 40? This is something we had talked about, which is I was talking about this, Liam, which is kind of the invasion in 48 and all the countries kind of coming in, and the idea that like all these countries started to attack, modern day Israel. And I was kind of touching on the fact that a lot of these villages stayed in place. A lot of the Arabs stayed in Israel because of the neighboring states of Jordan, Lebanon, and then Egypt kind of going in and defending those small villages. How involved were the other countries in 48? Were they sending in all their military? Destiny kind of touched on that. They went up to almost Tel Aviv or close to Tel Aviv, things like that.
Well, to start with, the invasions only happened 6 months into the process of Nakba, which began in the end of the previous year. I mean, it was already...
Were the invasions themselves in response to the Nakba? Were the Arab invasions in 48 in response to the Nakba? Deep research, all right? Find out the truth. I thought it was pretty clear what I was asking the first time. ChatGPT let me down. What I'm seeing as the issue is the Balfour Declaration is kind of hoist upon this land that falls under British custody after World War One. So you used to have the Ottoman Empire, it dissolves. So now when you got British custody of this land, they basically set it aside and say, this is where we want the Jews to go. That this is going to be the Jewish homeland. I don't know what population of Jews had already lived there, but my understanding was that the Zionist movement had been advocating for Palestine to be a Jewish homeland since at least the late 19th century. So for the better part of like 30 or 40 years before the Balfour Declaration even happens, you have a Zionist movement advocating for Palestine to be a Jewish homeland. At least that's my understanding of it. I don't know if the Balfour Declaration was done with any consultation of the people living there, any attempt to ascertain, what they believed or what they wanted. I actually don't know much about it, so it's one of these things I'm going to need to look into a bit more. But the issue seems to stem from this stated goal of making this a Jewish homeland that kind of rides on until the Arab Revolt in the 30s, where the British switch courses. They do the white paper and they basically say, well, never mind. Actually, it's not going to be a Jewish home state, and we're going to stop the Jews from immigrating here. Yeah, but the Wikipedia says the Nakba started at the very end of December 47. Arabs invaded in May of 48. However, the civil war that preceded the invasion started in November of 47. So I was actually reading about that because that's one of these questions that Destiny was asking about who started the war in 47, the civil war. And he says it's the Palestinians who fired first. This one's apparently questionable. Yes, you could say the Palestinians fired first. But if you were to ask those Palestinians, they would say the Jews fired first, right? And this wasn't like a shot heard around the world in Concord or anything like that, or Lexington. This was a consequence of a terrorist attack by the Zionist terror groups only like 2 weeks before the bus attack. Or was it 2 weeks? I got to get my dates right. It was like a week or 2 weeks before the bus attacks. So you have these, the Zionist terror group, Lehi, summarily kill 5 Palestinian Arabs. Then a week later, and just coincidentally maybe, or maybe they are related, a day after the UN partition plan, there's these Arab militias that kill a bus full of Jews. So it seems like competing retaliation attacks. Hey, what's up, kitty cat? Marshmallow. My cat's here. She's now rubbing against the microphone. Enjoy these sounds. Hey, dum-dum. Hey, what are you doing? You can hear her purring, I believe. All right, I'm working. Go away. I love you too, but go away. Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry, I got lost here. It's the fault of the British. I mean, you could say that, I guess. The thing I would try to look to is seeing if you can. Well, I wouldn't necessarily. If I recall correctly, you could trace back terrorism going back to at least 20s on both sides. I'm not sure 100%, but I think it was terrorism by the Jewish settlers prior to that point. There's clearly Jewish terrorism. I'm not sure I would say necessarily that the 48 war itself is an extension of the 47 Civil War. It could be that the Nakba is in retaliation or in response to the 47 Civil War, and then the Arab invasion happens in response to the Nakba. I think that would be more likely to be the case. But I still have to do all this research. Anyway, I was reading this article. There was a lack of mutual planning or strategy among the Arab armies. In 1953, John Bagot Glubb noted that the Arab states were unprepared for war with conflicting intentions and regional rivalries leading to mutual sabotage. alongside disorganized planning and management in Lebanon. Throughout the war, there was no common military headquarters, no attempts at coordinating the offenses of the Arab armies, and not even regular liaison service for sharing enemy intelligence. I'm not sure what this point is here to prove. That there is a lack of... Like, they could still have the goal of annihilating the Jewish state, right? Even if they're incompetent. I'm not sure what this point is meant to support. I guess the point of this is to say there's no way they could have committed an annihilation of the Jewish state, but I'm not even sure what he wrote here necessarily proves it. Like the lack of common military headquarters or non-coordination, I don't think that necessarily proves that they were not intent on annihilating Israel as a state. The Arab government's primary goal was preventing the Palestinian Arabs' total ruin and flooding of their own countries by more refugees. This is a valid point worth addressing, though, because I think refugee problem, I'm just going to put that as a note there, that while Palestinian Arabs had committed only 2 large massacres during the course of the Civil War period, how many large massacres are they allowed? This was not the case for the Arab regular armies, even though these armies were afforded opportunities to do so. So the Palestinian Arabs themselves were misbehaving, and the Arab militaries weren't. But these factors mean nothing if one does not construct for the actions of the Arab states on the ground, which is the most effective way to understand their objectives due to the scarcity of reliable documentation. Although there are differing opinions, even among historians, I have yet to encounter strong counterarguments substantiated by positive evidence. Many objections seem to stem from a lack of context or a failure to interpret actions by Arab states from their own perspective. At the onset and during the initial phase of the conflict, Arab political and military leaders were aware of their limitations and lacked genuine conviction in their ability to destroy the Jewish state. Arab state and military maneuvers in the initial part of the invasion. For those interested, I've scanned a map of Benny Morris's book for everyone's convenience. Oh, that's so kind. How does this guy do this? He's like a human encyclopedia. It's insane. Okay. It's useful as it maps out the ethnic makeup of relevant towns, settlements, cities, etc. It also distinguishes Egyptian, Transjordanian, Iraqi, and Syrian advances. Map contains some errors. Egyptians had a twofold invasion. Syrians had a split northern invasion. Okay. Jordanians are all over the place. Nice. One thing I would note, if this was necessarily about the annihilation of the Jewish state, well, maybe I don't know. I mean, because this is an encircling movement. It just seems like a lot of these Jewish areas are not really being advanced towards. Haganah brigades. Where are those at? Do we see those? I'm trying to read a map on the spot. Haganah brigades. Do we see them? I don't even see them on the map. Am I crazy? Oh, hello, kitty. Okay, well, thanks for that. Hey, cat. You cat sleeping on my keyboard. Okay, I don't know what I can derive from that, but okay. Arab lobbying on behalf of the Palestinians during the period of the United Nations General Assembly vote and preceding it was both ineffectual and limited. Zionist officials at the time suggested correctly that the threats of war, oil embargo, and shifts to the communist bloc had a very great deal of bluff. And this was partly rooted in the Arab states' convictions that Resolution 181 would not gain a two-thirds majority. I'm guessing Resolution 181 was the one establishing the Jewish state. But also rooted in the conflicting interests of contradicting policies of the Arab League's member states, as can be seen from the Arab Summit conferences between September and December 1947. They compromised on the creation of the Arab Liberation Army, but the intervention of regular armies following the British withdrawal was opposed by Egypt, Syria, and Saudi Arabia. Why? Hang on. The states supporting the intervention of Arab regular armies varied in their objective. Transjordan. Am I misunderstanding this? Well, maybe I should just wait to ask denying. I feel like you would want some sort of a regular about that, but Jordan aimed to secure only the Arab part, while Iraq advocated for a complete overrun of the Jewish states, so they had conflicting goals. Arab Liberation Army, ALA, was initially conceived for intervention after Britain's withdrawal. However, the of course, I remember reading about the Iraq here being like super anti-Semitic as well. However, the Mufti forced its early entry into the conflict to safeguard his position. Capturing the essence of the period between January and May of 1948 within a confined space is challenging. I'm choosing to highlight specific actions by the invading states that I feel are important, but I would highly advise those interested to read any of the monographs cited in the footnotes. Obviously, the ALA, who is that again? That's the Arab Liberation Army? Okay. Would eventually come to violate British sovereignty in Palestine. Palestinian and other forces numbered some 10,000, although some suggested that up to 6,000 foreign fighters were in Palestine. 1/3 of the ALA was Palestinian. You'd think it would be like more than that. But the ALA numbered some 4,000 and was deployed to Samaria, western Upper Galilee, and between Nablus and Jerusalem, all within the territory allocated by the UN to the Arabs. I'm no expert, but I think that would mean they stake a claim to it. Okay, this is a lot to read. Oh my god, my boy writes a lot. I don't know how he does it. I really don't. Okay. We might come to this later. Kitty cat, you are annoying me now. I love you, but you are officially annoying me. I fed you 2 weeks ago. What else do you want? Okay, we're talking about the Nakba. Okay, so Britain leaves. Britain leaves in May in 48. Civil War had already displaced 250 to 300,000 Arabs. Okay, Arab League communique. On May 15th, the Arab League issued a public statement justifying intervention. It explicitly states the exodus of more than 250,000 Palestinian Arabs who had fled into neighboring countries. Okay, so they make a statement. So this is one of the reasons for the war. Okay. So the Arab intervention in 48, just from reading this, seems to be more of a police action. Okay. So the official line echoes the Arab League rhetoric of intervening to stabilize a chaotic situation rather than expressly to repatriate refugees. Historians recognize the Arab leaders publicly cited the refugee problem. For example, Gelber notes that the Arab government's primary goal is preventing the Palestinians' total ruin and the flooding of their own country by more refugees. Wait, what am I reading here? Oh, Palestine, 1948. Why is this like this? Oh my god. Okay. Oh my god, am I supposed to read the... There's a whole ass book here. Okay, we're not going through that, but I appreciate the citation. He observes that fiery slogans such as "Drive the Jews into the Sea" were largely domestic propaganda to rally support. The real policy aim was to contain the crisis of the Palestinian collapse. In other words, protecting Palestinians from further display was part of the stated rationale. The bulk of the Palestinian exodus occurred before and during the invasion, not after. Gelber's analysis and Palestinian eyewitness accounts show that by May 15th, the refugee flow had largely subsided. The war itself, the Jewish and Arab offensives, was already creating the Nakba. Thus, the armies did not invade in response to the pre-existing humanitarian crisis, but rather the refugees were a product of the conflict that was already underway. Is it the... I guess I'm confused. I thought the Nakba was the expulsion and exodus of Palestinians from their homes during the Civil War. Am I wrong? It's also like a mass killing, right? I need to look more into the Nakba more. Arab regimes had broader objectives beyond refugee rescue. They publicly decried partition and sought territorial gains. For example, King Abdullah of Transjordan aimed to annex the West Bank, Egypt to secure the Gaza and Sinai region. Okay. You know what? That gets to be its own point. Okay. Oh no, I need to pay for GPT. That's actually something I consider paying for. Okay, that's helpful. Oh, this is gonna trigger me. I gotta add apostrophes to everything. Oh, how did this phrase it? To prevent further collapse of Palestinian society. Okay. All right. I think that's a good start. For the next episode, we need to investigate the Nakba more. That said, thanks for everybody who tagged along for the research stream. I appreciate all of your help. I appreciate all of your insights. I have a lot I need to look into. What a beautiful city. A little port city. There's something really attractive about buildings in the Middle East or Middle Eastern architecture. Even their like little, you know, mid-rises in their towns. Something real cool about them. Oh no, it's Twin Towers. It would be a real shame if, never mind. King David Hotel bombing. Need to read about that. What did the Deir Yassin massacre happens in 48? Hang on. Need to read into that. And I need to establish chronology. Questions 3 and 4, they don't really apply to me. I mean, I still don't see anything less than a two-state solution being practical. You need a two-state solution. There's no universe where one-state solution is going to work. Would Jews trust Arabs? No, and they'd have every right not to. Jews were evicted out of every surrounding state. I need to read more into that. Why do Palestinians have a right to Israel? Fucking who has the right to what? This whole conflict is insane and fucked and insane. And yeah, I don't know, man. Anyway, to anybody watching, thanks for tuning in. Peace, love.